Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a world of political tension and global power struggles. A world where the fate of millions was determined by the actions of two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. For over 4 decades, the world watched as the two sides engaged in a battle of ideologies, with each nation striving to prove their way of life was superior. But this was no ordinary battle. This was a battle without borders, fought on the global stage. The world was on the brink of a catastrophic war, and the smallest move could trigger a nuclear holocaust. But despite the fear and uncertainty, the people of the world refused to back down. They stood strong in the face of adversity and pushed forward, determined to make a better future for all. In this video, we'll take you on a journey through the Cold War, exploring its causes, its key events, and its impact on the world. So sit back, relax, and join us as we delve into the history of the Cold War. The Cold War was a global conflict that lasted for nearly 5 decades and had far-reaching consequences that continue to shape the world today. It was a struggle between two superpowers, the United States and its allies in the Western Bloc, and the Soviet Union and its allies in the Eastern Bloc. The tensions between these two powers began to emerge in the aftermath of World War II and were rooted in differing political ideologies and economic systems. The United States was committed to democracy and capitalism, while the Soviet Union was a communist state. This fundamental difference in ideology was at the heart of the conflict and led to a period of intense competition, suspicion, and mistrust between the two powers. One of the key events of the Cold War was the Berlin blockade of 1948–49. The Soviet Union attempted to cut off all land and air access to the city of Berlin in an attempt to force the Western Allies to abandon their occupation of the city. This event was a turning point in the Cold War, as it demonstrated the willingness of the Soviet Union to use force in pursuit of its goals. The Western Allies responded by launching the Berlin airlift, which successfully delivered supplies to the city and defied Soviet efforts to isolate it. The Berlin blockade was a key moment in the Cold War, as it highlighted the importance of Berlin as a symbol of the struggle between the Western Bloc and the Eastern Bloc, and marked the beginning of the division of Germany into two separate states. Another major event in the Cold War was the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. This was a 13-day political and military standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union over the deployment of nuclear missiles in Cuba. The crisis brought the world closer to nuclear war than ever before and demonstrated the dangers of the arms race that was taking place between the two superpowers. The United States imposed a naval quarantine on Cuba and demanded the removal of the missiles, while the Soviet Union refused to comply. The crisis was eventually resolved through diplomacy, and the Soviet Union agreed to remove the missiles in exchange for a U.S. promise not to invade Cuba. The Cuban Missile Crisis was a pivotal moment in the Cold War, as it demonstrated the importance of diplomacy in resolving international conflicts and highlighted the dangers of the arms race between the two superpowers.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This government, as promised, has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba. Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island.
The helicopter has become one of the most powerful and enduring icons of the Vietnam War.
Another example of the Cold War's impact on global events is the Vietnam War. This conflict was fought between communist forces in the North and South Vietnam, which was supported by the United States. The Vietnam War was one of the most controversial and divisive events of the Cold War era. as the US became deeply involved in a war that was far from its shores and resulted in significant losses of life and resources. The war had far-reaching consequences for both the United States and Vietnam, as well as for the broader region of Southeast Asia. The conflict resulted in a significant loss of life, and its aftermath continues to shape the region today. The Cold War was a complex and far-reaching conflict that had a profound impact on world events. From the Berlin blockade to the Cuban Missile Crisis to the Vietnam War, the events of the Cold War demonstrate the power of diplomacy, military force, and propaganda in international relations. The struggle between the Western Bloc and the Eastern Bloc was a struggle for power and influence, and its legacy continues to shape the world today.
After the war, you will have the greatest navy in the world. You will have, I hope, the greatest air force. You will have the greatest trade. You will have all the gold.
The Cold War was a struggle between two superpowers that shaped the world as we know it today. If you found this information on the Cold War interesting and thought-provoking, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more great content. We have a lot of exciting videos coming up, so stay tuned. And if you have any ideas for future videos, please leave a comment and let us know. We value your input and want to create content that is engaging and informative. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.